Welcome back, everyone. Today we've got a hell of a lot to talk about because the war within's primary thirst of story is now over. It is finished. We have just done the 5th and final chapter of the endgame campaign. That being said, there is still the raid to go, so I imagine there will be some narrative in the raid, probably some narrative after the raid, but for now, the primary chapter of the story, of course, involving xal'atath, our antagonist, that has actually happened. I'm going to talk about impressions first, and then we're going to dive deep into the story that's happened, then some analysis, and then some talk about what is next, because, man, you may leave this cinematic thinking, oh, wow, they kind of wrapped things up. I wonder what's going to happen. Don't worry, I think I've got plenty of answers. I think they'll be pretty satisfying answers as well. Now, in terms of the content they just shipped, I think this is the first time the Blizzard have stuck the landing this well, at least for the level up experience of a World of Warcraft campaign. So let's just take that from, say, Warlords of Draenor onwards. Warlords of Draenor, the first 2/3 I think were really fantastic. Then it did fall off a bit towards the end. I think this beats that. Take Legion. Now, I think that Legion with its Order Hall quests and the artifact quests, that stuff was great. But the main 4 zones of Legion were just the Pillars of Creation MacGuffin hunt. They didn't feel as cohesive, I think, as things have been this time. Of course, Battle for Azeroth had many of the same problems and very controversial lore decisions, as did Shadowlands. And as with Dragonflight, I mean, it was a step up from Shadowlands, but it certainly had its issues. I mean, Dragonflight was way better as a game, but as a story, it didn't really feel like Warcraft. I mean, just short of a year ago, we were all laughing at the whole Avengers Assemble scene with Alex Strasser, right? Where all the portals opened and suddenly, we hadn't talked to him in a while, but boom, there's Gelbin Mechatork coming through the portal like a big hero, and it was just a really silly, cheesy scene as, they were going to save Alex Strasser from Farak. It was one of those moments where it did not work. It didn't feel earned. And consistently for years, WoW has been full of, I think, a lot of unearned scenes, unearned moments. This time round, it's completely night and day. I am left with a sense of completion, right? Yes, the story's not over. Yes, there's going to be plenty more. But it feels like here, it has reached a natural stopping point, and it's done so in a way where I am satisfied with the end-to-end narrative experience that I got. That is not something I've been able to say about a story in WoW for a long-ass time. So that is bloody good. I mean, we're used to being strung along or getting riddles and mysteries that might be cognitively interesting but aren't emotionally satisfying and, well, never really seem to go anywhere. This just feels like the opposite to that. So, I'm very happy. I think this is a humongous step up for the World of Warcraft development team, and if this is setting the tone for what this expansion and this set of 3 expansions is going to be like going forward, I am more excited for what is to come than I was before this expansion shipped, and I was feeling pretty good about things on the eve of this expansion shipping. Now, I've got even better news for you if you want some more deep lore. If you head over to bellular.games, we have published loads of deep dive lore articles and quite a lot of content as well. We've got the Arathi connection, the years of the glorious Dominion, all about that mysterious fish and the actions of xal'atath behind the scenes, as well as multiple episodes of the Lore Walking podcast and our next full main channel lore video on the Belladar. It is literally all up there on bellular.games right now, and bellular.games, the site, which you'll notice looks a little bit different to last time. It's been upgraded. It is what I am building for the future, free of the algorithm, free of ads, free of sponsors, basically so that I can build something that will last for you and for my team. And you can check out all of that content today with a free trial. I mean, seriously, if you're leveling up a bunch of characters and you want 40 plus hours of the Lore Walking podcast to listen to as you do that, that's a pretty good damn deal. Okay, let's talk about things. As a recap of the events, we basically gathered our forces across the Isle. We dealt with the big Titan Colossus. And yes, there'll be plenty of Titan stuff to talk about in the future. We did spy stuff with Lillian, we gathered our forces together, and eventually, xal'atath launched an attack on the Arathi of Hallowfall. Clearly, xal'atath had built up her forces with the Nerubians to the point where she could actually make a pass at Belladar. And that's a pretty major thing because Belladar, well, is in its void phase, and that will be very useful to her. Now, during the fight, Illyria notices the black blood is actually everywhere, and that really this whole attack is a bit of a diversion because xal'atath is away in the temple doing the real work. Now, this black blood is fairly interesting stuff. We know it's the blood of dead old gods or something along those lines. It could just be caused by Sargeras stabbing the world in general and that being destabilizing. Many other people, though, suspect that his stab pierced the corpse of Cthulhu. Because remember, the actual fleshy bodies of old gods are far larger than the manifestations that we fought in raid fights. So basically that was mangled, and that has caused even more of the black blood to just pour forth throughout the world. Now, Zal sends her Nerubians to attack, we respond, and it turns out that is just what xal'atath wanted. This black blood is everywhere, and in a way our violence is fueling it. Mechanically, maybe some explanation is needed there, but I think if you think about the void, if you think about the whispers, the madness, the chaos, this is exactly what would feed into that. So, we're in the cathedral. We see xal'atath absorbing all of this energy, seemingly from the black blood, into the dark heart. And I did notice 6 streams of void energy. For a while, Blizzard were talking about, the 5 torches, the 5 trees, the 5 everything. It was all coming in sets of 5. I have to wonder if they did 6 streams as a way of just saying, hey, guys, it's not those riddles anymore. Now, by this time, the heart has absorbed essence from Galakrond, it's absorbed arcane power from Dalaran, and of course all of this black blood stuff, as well as a certain mage. We'll get to that. Now, in our confrontation, xal'atath feels very confident that we're essentially just walking into her traps. And xal'atath thinks that Illyria's bow is aimed at her. Illyria does a little twist, and her arrow ends up striking the heart. Now, my initial reaction to that was, come on, xal'atath, you had one job. You had one thing to protect, the Dark Heart, and you let Illyria shoot it, really. But a little bit more thinking happened, and I think I know what Blizzard have intended there. Illyria's shot would have missed the Dark Heart if xal'atath hadn't lurched at the very final moment, and she lurched trying to protect the heart. Of course, Illyria literally tells her that she's aiming for the heart. And I think there's actually some intent there, because this entire campaign was spent with xal'atath predicting our actions, leading us into traps. This time, though, I think a lot of Illyria's development as a character is reflected in how she has now done that to xal'atath, essentially psyching her out by saying, "Oh, I'm going to go and hit the Dark Heart," causing Zal to move, and then her being able to strike the heart. And I suppose also it's a void arrow. Maybe there is something there that grants Illyria perhaps a little bit of extra sight that helps her land her blow. xal'atath is pissed. We hear a roar of rage, and come on, man, let's just play it again. It is fun to hear that character no longer in complete control. So, with that, the Dark Heart loses its ability to contain all of the energy stored within, and out pops Khadgar, who soon dies. Anduin then reconnects with the light. He stops running away from the light. Essentially, this is the moment that forces him to step up to the plate, and he discovers that no, he actually does have the goods. I think this was, it's one of those it's now or never moments. I think Blizzard absolutely landed at A+. This is a fantastic way to bring the development of Anduin's character forward, tie it into the plot, tie it into major characters. Again, this is just Blizzard actually making a story that is more than the sum of its parts. And for the longest time, especially the last decade, Blizzard have always struggled to make their narrative more than the sum of its parts. Today, though, we actually see that working. That said, I am a bit of a bastard. I'm a little bit cheeky, so I do have to wonder, in those maybe 20 seconds when Khadgar was dead, did he meet Pelagos again? Okay, well, let me know what you think. And hey, Blizzard did have xal'atath remind us of the Shadowlands, so I feel like, with me doing that, we're now even. Anyhow, with that, characters back. We have lovely moments between our cast. Again, fantastic acting, writing that's actually working, and just that smile on Khadgar's face is really, really nice. WoW has struggled with big moments not feeling earned for a while. This is the antithesis of that. This is a moment that feels earned, and again, it just makes me so happy to be able to say that about the story that we're getting here. There is so much lore to analyze here. A little sidebar first, and that is with Tony Amendola. So he played Tilk's mentor in Stargate SG-1. So if you've ever thought Master Braytak and Khadgar feel rather, or sound rather similar, yeah, they're the same actor. Now, Master Braytak, for the longest time, he was the most death-flagged character in existence. There's interviews of Tony basically saying, whenever he'd get a script for a new episode, he'd be basically holding his breath, waiting for the writers to finally kill off his character. I suppose he got a little bit of that here with Khadgar, and I guess this is also quite well timed with the video that I did about Khadgar not being dead. Didn't exactly go down how I thought, but I thought we were close enough. Now, to kick things into analysis mode, xal'atath roars that this changes nothing. Does it? Well, I think it does actually change things. Khadgar's with us, and he is one of the most important characters that there is, especially when it comes to cosmic knowledge, just mastery of the sorts of things that we'll be dealing with. I do, though, think that she's wrong. I mean, number one, Khadgar's back with us. He is an absolutely humongous asset, but also, she has been denied Belladar. Now, we don't exactly know what Belladar is, but if we think about the vision of the Five Naru that Meldar had, she's the founder of the Church of the Holy Light, like 2,000 whatever years ago. That's, of course, she's the character who the city, Meldar, that we find in Halaval is named after. So, seemingly, like, that is a Naru ship. I mean, a lot of people think it's a Naru ship, maybe with 5 Naru in it or something like that. And as we know, Naru can enter their void cycle. As we've seen with Belladar, it enters its void cycle. So xal'atath has lost an absolutely humongous font of power. And when you think about what she was doing with the Nerubians, was her main goal there being able to make a pass at Belladar? So certainly xal'atath's plans have been foiled, but it does very much seem she does have more in the tank. I really like what Blizzard have done here. So the Dark Heart absorbs energy. We've obviously seen that. Khadgar realized that, did this transmutation spell, which has of course hurt him, and he now is in this chair designed by a certain archmage that he gets along particularly well with, so that's kind of nice. But whenever you're doing like a fake out character death, one of the things you've really got to avoid is making it feel cheap. Here, it does not feel cheap, because Khadgar escaped by using his skill, using his intelligence, using his mage powers, which is exactly the sort of thing he should be able to do. I think my big question, though, is, has xal'atath essentially lost all that she had gathered, or has she already put some of that power to use? Going back to the main cutscene, we do see that the power kind of breaks its containment, and then it implodes. Now, take a look at the Dark Heart being used in Dalaran. It expands and expands and expands, and then it implodes. So I don't know if maybe it's been teleported away somewhere else. xal'atath is in it, and it's obviously not the case that she's dead. So that could mean there's some regrouping for her to do. Now, there is one very clear thing that has been left dangling. We've obviously got the raid against Queen Ansarek coming out next week. And one of the things that we see in the campaign is that xal'atath is able to essentially mind control, or at least sort of take over the will of the ascended Nerubians. We saw that once in the campaign. We haven't really seen it much else, though. So perhaps there are still plans in play, and maybe those will happen during the raid. For the most part, though, it does seem that her immediate plan has been foiled. That being said, Blizzard have been very clear about the character of xal'atath. They've said that we will see plenty of her across the saga. And that does mean she's very much not going to be the end villain of this expansion. So, in a world where xal'atath is not the final boss of the expansion, what's going on? What things are in play? And that's really what I'd like to talk about next. So most obviously there's the Queen Ansarek stuff, but then there's also the Hare. Now the Hare have, they've had a little bit of screen time, but very much they were a thing for the rest of this expansion. We don't know exactly what's going to be going on with them, but there are a hell of a lot of theories going on. So the roots of Eluna here, how are they connected to that? Do they have a connection to Elune? If they do have a connection to Elune and to the roots, does that mean that they will be a little bit in opposition of Titan-related stuff? Of course, considering that Aman'Thul is the one who ripped that tree out of the world, which also does make me think, we had this thought on our stream, is the big shaft of the coreway actually where that tree was ripped out? And the other thing about the coreway, remember, the coreway is supposed to be a direct link to the World Soul. Yet when you go down the coreway, you don't see the World Soul, and that's because, taking a look at it, the Raining Deeps is just a maintenance shaft. Like, clearly the coreway keeps on going down. So perhaps something will go on there. Another thing that's been going on is goblin stuff. We've seen some Void-related goblins. We've seen the Venture Company, and some data mining has hinted that goblin stuff will happen. The other side of things, then, is the Arathi. They have been set up very much like the Hallowfall Arathi are our mates, but sort of out of convenience, and while Faerun, I think, is absolutely a fast ally, I wouldn't be so sure with, say, Steelstrike, who's probably going to be most loyal to her Emperor, and things with the Emperor have been set up such that we maybe should be a little bit suspicious. As an example to them, dragons are a creature of myth, not the sort of thing that you see, yet when we take a look at the lore books that we found in the Emerald Dream, in the Emirdrasil patch, well, there is one story that seems to suggest Erenithria, this dragon thousands of years ago, made her way to the other side of the world and actually had a brood there. Now, if that is the case, but to Faerun, dragons are like a long extinct mythological thing, then that may suggest that the Arathi wiped them out in their deep past. So, again, there are plenty of reasons why we should be suspicious of the Arathi. And then, of course, there's also Belladar. It is a massive mystery, as is the sea and the roots. And again, with the sea, remember the side quest that many of us will have done with the fish who basically turns out to be an Ozomat-like sort of squid fella. And then, if you fly into the sea, you'll notice there's this NPC flying high in the sky called the Guardian, and again, it is a big Ozomat-looking dude. And hell, even the sea in Hallowfall, you might be thinking, like, is that just some aquifer? What's really going on there? Well, again, remember the story of Aluna here, where it was planted, and, then it was ripped out, but the roots were still there, and those roots were nourished by the tears of Aenar. The tears of Aenar. Are those tears, in a way, like, are they something that seeded that underground ocean or underground sea? Is it perhaps infused with those tears? Is something going on there? Again, a great example where Blizzard could extrapolate this a little bit further. I could even see there being a patch at the other side of the cavern. One thing, if you just look across the sea, you can see like big rock formations very, very, very far away, but you cannot see the other side. So that cavern is absolutely ginormous. And another thing as well is Turalyon. So Turalyon is here now, and he is absolutely going to have a perspective on what Belladar is. Remember, he spent a ridiculous amount of time fighting in the Army of the Light from one of the narrow dimensional fortresses with Zira. So he's almost certainly going to look at Belladar and essentially recognize it or see it as being something similar to what he's seen before. Even, right, take a look at Belladar, look close, and look where it actually connects to the roof of the cavern. You essentially see these sort of light runes coming out of it, and those seemingly match up with the markings that are around Oshu'gun. Oshu'gun, of course, being the narrow ship that the Draenei crash-landed in the world of Draenor on. So there's a hell of a lot going on here that Blizzard can cook with. And then there's the Vault of Memory, right? The Vault of Memory and the truth behind the Earthen's purpose. Because the whole thing with the Earthen is, in order to assist us, they had to smash the edicts. Because their edicts essentially said, you lot are programmed to defend the Coreway and the Isle of Dorne, and that's it. You cannot deviate from that plan. Yet, of course, they did. So they're now a little bit more open to questioning their purpose, especially because whenever they did sort of smash up the edicts, a Titan failsafe thing turned on and tried to wipe them all out. And then when you sort of learn a little bit more about the Vault of Memory, it does seem that some of Azeroth's memories have, it seems that our foes have been trying to wipe them. So whenever we go to the Hall of Memory, which we're doing literally right now, so this could be more endgame campaign stuff, we're going to be learning about Azeroth's memories. That ties into the pre-expansion event, and if you look at the Vault of Memory, it looks very, very similar to the Chamber of the Heart. I mean, it's basically the same sort of installation. So, again, the deepest, most secret level of Titan installation on the planet from what we understand. So certainly as we fix up the Vault of Memory, we're going to learn more things, and that will certainly inform where the plot is going. Not that we even need more, because, again, with the Sea of Hallowfall, the Arathi Empire, Belladar, the Black Blood, the roots of Aluna here, the Hare, and the goblins, there is so much lore that could be going on. And that's even with xal'atath, of course, being in the immediate defeated. And that is an interesting thing. I imagine that xal'atath will be slowly working in the background, likely trying to bring about the events of the Midnight expansion. I expect that we may see her again in this expansion and have some hints of her, but she's obviously not going to be the final boss. And I think that basically means the primary thrust of her story has kind of happened. And it frees up the patch cycle of this expansion to do more stories. And usually, I would be a little bit worried about that. But the thing is, Blizzard have actually left me with a satisfying conclusion to the story of this expansion as it was presented. And funnily enough, what it's got me thinking about is FF14. One of the things that game did quite successfully is it would have its main expansion narratives be self-contained within the initial expansion launch experience. So, with Endwalker, the story of Endwalker is finished at the end of the Endwalker campaign. It wasn't like, say, the Dragonflight expansion where you get a bit of the story, but it's not quite over, but it's not quite begun, and it's just oddly paced. No, I actually feel like I bought the War Within, and based on all of the War Within's marketing materials and build-up, and I suppose hype cycle, whatever, I feel like that has been delivered on in a satisfying way. And we are now just clear to have patches that, yes, maybe have a little bit of xal'atath working and, behind the scenes, but can do other things set within this world, a world that Blizzard have actually got me to care about way more than they've been able to in the past. Again, the main quest line, definitely a little bit in the shorter side, but seriously, going through the side quests and the other content that they've shipped, it is bloody good. These are probably the best side quests World of Warcraft has ever had, and they do an amazing job of just bulking out these zones and actually leaving you giving a shit about these peoples, giving a shit about the world. This is the most that I've cared about the World of Warcraft in a long-ass time, and that means that I feel satisfied. I have speculation going on in my head that I don't feel like is a random shot in the dark, like, say, some of those times during Shadowlands, and I'm excited to see what happens next. So I think this has been a big win for Blizzard, and absolutely hats off to them. The improvement from Dragonflight to the War Within is staggering. On the narrative front, it is astounding, it is staggering, it is it's just not what we expect, especially from a live game, because it's extremely hard to make big change like that with a live game. I think they've done an absolutely incredible job, and they are building back the prestige of the Warcraft brand. And I guess for so many people, that's what it lost over the years. So, good stuff. Now, if you would like way more lore content, including being able to see our next full lore video early, you can check out bellular.games. We've got multiple episodes of the Lore Walking podcast up there. We've got our deep dive lore articles into, the big nerdy details of what we think is going to be coming next in this expansion, deciphering the Hallowfall runes and all of that stuff. So if you want loads of content and to support our team, that is the place to go. I, of course, will see you back here on the channel shortly, where we will, of course, be getting ready for the first season and all of the gameplay content. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.
Mm-hmm.